They are. Or it was a moment.
All right, let's make a start. Welcome, everyone.
That you can actually get.
Sorry. Maybe we'll give a quick note to the people outside. Folks, just letting you know we're about to start. And welcome also to the people who are joining online. Happy to have everyone jump in. If you raise your hand, it's even better for whenever we do have a discussion and a listening session. Melissa, let me know when we're good to go.
A little refresh and
Thank you. All right, so this is the session dedicated to you, the users. We are the Users Committee. My name is Igor Andreoni. I have the privilege of chairing the Users Committee, I think for the last time, since we're gonna have a rotation. And in fact, I think it's now a good time for people to nominate their colleagues or nominate themselves to become new members of the Users Committee. And I wonder maybe if Melissa, you want to take advantage of the fact that we have a Slack channel for this session to also publish, advertise this opportunity there. Before we delve into Users Committee matters, the usual reminders that any sort of harassment, of disrespectful talking, and any other form of misconduct will not be tolerated. We're following the standard safety protocols for people who feel sick. We kindly ask that may leave the room if they're here in person. And in any case, we respect each other's boundaries. For virtual attendees, as I said before, please remember there is also going to be Slack as a place where you can ask questions, provide feedback. And may I actually ask if there is anyone here who can help take care of giving a look at Slack and see if there is anything relevant that should be brought into the discussion. Thank you, Nuprita. Appreciate it. And in addition, especially for the listening session, I see Daryl also, you rose your hand. Is it for volunteering for that role?
Yes.
Oh, he says yes in chat. Okay, he's really committed to the chat itself. And but Daryl, of course, feel free to unmute and grab our attention anytime. Thank you. In terms of the agenda is really simple. I will give this brief introduction about the charge of the Users Committee and introduce my colleagues here. We will have an initial listening session for the duration of about 40 minutes. That's really the space for people to give feedback to the project via the Users Committee. Now, I think now is a good time to give everyone a short reminder of how we report feedback to the project. It's been agreed also, I think when Matt was chair, that we would report findings. So we would report issues, problems, concerns that the community has, and then we leave it to the project to find a way to address those grievances and to solve them. I think all of us are so used to wanting to fix problems ourselves that every time we give concrete action items, and in general, I think that's always appreciated, but it's more within our scope to primarily bring up any possible issues that people want to see addressed by the project. Concluding with the agenda, there will be a final part in which it will be an open discussion among the Users Committee members. So in that case, it would be preferred if people who are listening in are, well, essentially more listeners and take advantage of the first part of this session to say all they have to say, unless, of course, it's really relevant to what's been said. And and the contribution can stir the discussion. In this slide that you can see here, but of course that you can find online, there are a series of links that could be helpful if you want to know more about the charge itself of the users committee. The description of, like a summary, essentially, of the charge and the introduction of the members can also be found on the website. And if you go on Community Forum, which we all agree is not the easiest thing to navigate, but if you type users-committee, I think you can find everything we're publishing. In particular, we're charged with publishing 2 reports per year, so semester A and semester B of each year, in which we collect feedback from the community and feedback from us as users, as part of the committee, and then we receive a response from the project on the points that we raise. All of this, both our reports and the responses, can be found in the community forum. We hold 2 formal meetings per year. Every time these meetings are public, although they will have a private session. This meeting today is not counted among those 2 meetings, okay? This is something extra. It's an extra opportunity that the organizers of the RCW decided to offer so that we can collect even more feedback and have even better discussion. And in addition, we have created multiple ways to provide feedback. The first, easiest, just come talk to us. You can obviously find us in occasions such as the RCW. You can email us. I think all the email addresses are on the website. You can use Slack. We have a mailing list. And on top of that, there is also a Google form that, once again, you can find the link on the slides that you can use to provide feedback. I would like actually to let you all introduce yourself very briefly, name, where you come from, and maybe the scientific area of interest.
Hi everyone, I am Alejandra Muñoz Arancibia. I am in Chile. I'm part of the Alerce broker and also part of the desk and informatic collaborations.
Hello, my name is Vicky Sarajadini. I'm from Florida Atlantic University and I'm part of the AGN Science Collaboration.
It's not a room mic.
Yeah.
I'm Matt Holman. I'm at the Center for Astrophysics. My work is in solar systems, so I'm on the Rubin Solar System commissioning team.
Hi, I'm Vincenzo Bedrecca. I am a postdoc at TNF in Napoli, Italy, and I'm interested in detecting transient and studying AGN optical variability.
I'm Michael Woodvasey. I'm a professor at the University of Pittsburgh. My interests are in supernova cosmology and fun with large data sets.
Hi everyone, I'm Anuprita More. I'm a research faculty at IUCAA in India. I'm a co-chair of the Strong Lensing Science Collaboration, and my general interests are strong lensing. I'm also a member of DESC and TVS. But general interests are on strong lensing.
And we also have at least 1 member of the UC online. Would you guys like to unmute, introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Daryl Seligman. I'm an assistant professor at Michigan State and part of the Solar System Science Collaboration.
Hi.
Thank you, Daryl.
I am Dominique Boutigny from Annecy in France. I'm working mostly in desk. I'm sorry, my camera is not working, so I cannot turn it on.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the Users Committee online? Well, if not, I will conclude by saying, adding to my own introduction, that I work at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and I am part of the TVS Science Collaboration, so transients and variable stars. And here more for, for memory, like for attaching a face to a name down the road. You can also recognize us with pictures, but I'm very happy that at least this RCW, there is a really strong presence, both in person and online for the UC members. And here's to the call for volunteers, which I kind of introduced earlier on. The charge for the UC members is of 2 years. So that's the commitment you would be offering in case you or someone you nominate are selected to be part of the users committee. Needless to say, it's a great opportunity to stay plugged in the Rubin ecosystem, a great opportunity also to be an advocate for your fellow Rubin enthusiasts. Something I should add, that although the charge is 2 years, it's required that about half the members actually renew their commitment to other 2 years to guarantee continuity. That's why some of you have seen some of our faces for way longer than 2 years. So this is a slide that Melissa prepared. And the key point here is, what are we asking of you? Just share your experience. Share your experience as user. If there is anything that really doesn't work well for you, the users committee can be a good way to provide formal feedback. Of course, the user committee is not the only way in which you can provide feedback to the project. Community forum remains the preferred way, but we are kind of the middle people between the users and the project that can help make advocacy stronger. And I would like to open now the floor to the listening session. We have summarized here some of the topics we have previously identified in preparation for this meeting that we would like to touch base upon. We can definitely do that in the discussion part, kind of the second half of the meeting. So please don't feel constrained by what you see on the slides. And also, may I ask, I don't know if we have any AI note-taking tool that is active, which typically is good in that it leaves people free to think and intervene without typing. Is this something we have from Zoom?
Zoom is set up.
It is, but you have to have made it available when you turned on the meeting, but you can try it if you go through.
Thank you. I think that would be helpful. But if on top of that, anyone wants to type some notes, that would be really helpful for whenever we put together the report, probably in a couple of months from now.
Can take the old-fashioned way.
Right.
I don't see the option, and I think I'm a.
Okay, that's disconnected. So can I please ask if anyone, Vincenzo?
Yes.
And Matt? Yeah, thank you so much. So oftentimes my opening the floor is followed by a few seconds of uncomfortable silence. Let's embrace that, unless someone comes prepared. But really, the floor is yours now.
So just to stimulate discussion, this is.
And may I ask, actually, whenever you all speak, if you can also say your name for the benefit of the people online.
So this is Michael Strauss. I just wanted to understand this list of discussion topics. These are items that the users committee themselves have identified as probably areas in which people have concerns. Am I saying that right?
Yes, it is. Partly, this is based on feedback we have already received from users, and partly just we know, for example, that the early data preview 2 has just been published and people have been playing around with it. So we find it likely that people will want to report feedback on that topic, for instance. Is there anything else that any of the committee members want to add to that? Well, if not, happy to take more input from you all.
Hi, this is Hatadru from Max Planck for Astrophysics. So I wanted to know if it is possible bulk downloading the cutouts, maybe with DP2, the cutouts from the visit images, maybe from DP2 in the future, and ideally using an API. And just to put a number, suppose, is it possible to download, suppose 10 to the power 5, 60 pixel cost, 60 pixel small cutouts every day?
Anyone wants to take this question? I must say this is very like technical and yet very important information you would like to learn about. We're not quite required to be experts in all these technical details, but especially if you found that these are missing features, we're very happy to have that as feedback.
I certainly welcome my project colleagues to correct me. Yes, absolutely. And this is what was meant by saying that this week's is a, partial wasn't the word, early for just the coads and the catalogs. And then what you're describing will be part of the functionality that will be available sometime between September and December for the cutout server.
I actually look forward to this.
Yeah, but maybe Adam or Crossy can give Adam, I guess, very specifically. And again, the mic's just for Zoom.
Another folks.
Yeah, thanks, Adam.
Yes, so yes, visit images, not part of early DP2. They're part of full DP2 sometime later this calendar year. Similarly, for the prompt visit images that come 80 hours after they're taken on Sky. Cutout services is there is a current cutout service that I don't think we would consider fit for bulk download purposes. Both bulk cutouts of COAD images and of visit images in a time series sense are on the roadmap. I might since that's more of a data services software development thing, I'd maybe on that to one of my colleagues if they're here, maybe Gregory, I don't know. I mean, Frosty's here. Okay, great.
Sorry, just to kind of reframe a little bit. I think in part, especially some of the previous opportunities in which we met, the conversation have become essentially a Q&A session between people working in the project and the community. We would like to move slightly away from that and really trying to have the discussion on what issues are you finding that we should report to the project. And think it's fine, but Bob is going to hate me for that, but it's fine to think big in that. Like if you see something that may require major rethinking, obviously not guaranteed that will be implemented, but it's good to give them some food for thought.
Yeah, so I guess maybe in the spirit of framing it that way, I guess making sure that the users committee communicates the sort of the synthesis of the user community's interests and priorities for these kind of services would certainly be good input on our side. And I'll refrain from any further technical answers on this point.
Wow. Okay. Nandini, and then Bob, and then Keith.
I'm sorry for skipping the queue. No, just.
Go for it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So I just, this is Nandini Hazra. I'm a postdoc in Warsaw. So the community and documentation pages are not very easily searchable, especially for a beginner who is not, so for example, for me, I know the threads that I'm looking for and I go and find them. But when we have students working with it for the first time, it's not easily searchable and the documentation has changed slightly, going from DP0 to DP1 to DP2. we were wondering if there is something in the pipeline in terms of resources, like a lightweight LLM that can be talked to, or something that is searchable, that doesn't need to give us the answer, just needs to point us to something that is relevant. Is that something?
Let's hear what Bob and Keith have to say, and if then anyone from the users committee want to respond to that or any other points, let's iterate this way.
I just wanted to reinforce the notion that this is the venue where the users should definitely tell us what they're thinking, and we will capture that. The team will capture that. Melissa and I work together, mostly Melissa, to synthesize a report, to help us, Ruben, respond to the report that comes from the users committee each time. So the types of questions that we've heard this morning will be in that report. I imagine the users committee will make recommendations or advisory comments to Ruben, and then we will respond to those in due time. It's up to Igor and the team how they want to handle it. If there's experts in the room that can give a quick answer to a specific question, I don't mind them doing that.
Okay, I was going to raise a different topic. Are we ready for a different topic?
I wanted to throw a question back to the people here.
Can I please ask you to wait, otherwise people online will not hear what you have to say.
I think the LLM searching question has come up a couple of times this week. I haven't actually tried it. I want to ask broadly, has someone else just tried it from existing ones? Mario, of course.
Can people confirm if we do have just one microphone? Because I'm going to put in a few miles.
This is good for you, Igor. You have the counter.
Yeah.
Thanks, Igor.
What I'm trying to say is that the people who are sitting up here in the front, they don't need the mics for this, the Zoom participants. So
Is that right? That's what it was earlier.
You ran it.
yeah. So we can talk without the mic.
People online can confirm they can hear us.
Igor, I would just ask.
Yes.
I can hear Rita's voice pretty clearly.
Yeah.
I would ask that people speak up because the mics aren't wired to speakers. It can be difficult to hear.
Yeah.
So on the LLM question, virtually all LLMs today are really good at finding information on the internet and then condensing it. So I almost never read our documentation. I'm just going to go and admit it. I go and ask ChatGPT to tell me what I want to know. And they are so good that they will pick it up within a day or two of publication. So this morning I needed something and I needed a whole report written, and it picked up a community response to a community post from yesterday. So I would advise everyone to just hit your favorite LLM. It will learn our documentation within days. And then I think what we need to do is we need to make sure to make as much documentation available as possible so that LLMs can learn it, so they can go and tell you what you need to know.
Any more comments on this before we switch to Keith's point?
I don't know if you want to say it so that it can be heard. Someone on the Slack said that they want people to speak louder, and because the mics are not ideal.
Okay, let's make sure we speak louder with the microphone maybe closer, and please raise the problem again in case the microphones installed on top of the committee is not working properly. Thank you.
Okay, this is Keith Bechtel speaking in the role of a science community member, in particular on the Dark Energy Science Collaboration. So during the commissioning phase, there was an in-kind contribution program that allowed many members of the science community to access data products as they were being developed and to contribute to the science validation prior to Data Preview 1 and Data Preview 2. There had been discussion at some point about having pilot processing campaigns that would be available to the science community before LSST DR1. I realize that people on the project have been extraordinarily busy over the past year, and I really appreciate the effort, for example, to make early DP2 available, in a timely way, and to basically make these, the work on the processing and so forth. I was wondering if at some point during the next year, if there will be more information or more development and communication about the mechanics of how pilot processing campaigns will be made available for LSST DR1, if that's still a plan, and if there will be more details presented on that.
Any comment on this?
Could you give us there are existing examples of pilot processing?
LSST data management always runs pilot processing campaigns over small, representative subsets of data prior to committing to the full processing, which often, is a campaign that takes many months, right? So it's just part of the validation process. At one point, there had been discussion about providing some access to members of the science community, but I think the details of how that would work and the mechanics of it had not been developed. So I'm not trying to put pressure or criticize or anything. I'm just asking the question if at some point during the next year, if there will be more development or communication about what that system might look like.
Sorry, just to clarify, you're talking about people who are not in the project itself having access to data to be able to do pilot campaigns, or am I getting that wrong?
No, that it's not requesting any additional processing for LSST data management. It's only the question of, is there a mechanism via which members of the science community will be able to access those data products that are being produced anyway in order to participate in the process of science validation prior to committing or in parallel with starting those processing campaigns. It's mainly in the spirit of looking forward, members of the science community being able to provide more actionable, timely feedback in preparation of major annual data releases.
Keith, if I may, are you saying just like leading up to things getting started, we had the NCON commissioning teams to kind of try to start doing some stuff, and that was an important part of feeding in. Is there a loosely analogous thing we might do in advance of DR1?
Correct.
I was holding the microphone, but Keith said correct. Thanks, Keith.
It's okay if there isn't an answer today. I'm just sorry. It's okay if there isn't an answer today. I'm really not trying to put pressure. I'm just asking the question is something to be thinking about, roughly 12 months from now when we're having the conversation about LSST DR1.
I wonder if, I would like to encourage people online also to raise their hand and feel free to speak up, raise issues, or respond to comments pretty much whenever they like.
I can speak into the ceiling. I don't think the users committee can answer that question. Are you asking it as a user?
Yeah. So I'm asking it as user Keith Bechtel, member of Dark Energy Science Collaboration, right? So I guess the reason why I bring it up here at the users committee, right? I mean, in some sense, it's like a data access, data policy thing, but I think it's going to be really critical in thinking about like if that is made available to the science community, I think it substantially impacts like the level of engagement that's possible, in terms of providing feedback on, what pilot data products might look like looking ahead into LSST DR1, which is why I'm raising it in this forum. Okay. Because I think it may influence sort of the activities of this body over the next year, depending on how Rubin Observatory sees moving forward in that direction.
Yes. Okay, so you, Keith, the user, would like the UC to know that it would be useful to you and your science if this happened, and if they could take that forward into their consideration and into the reports, even though like they can't answer that for you, but they're there to advocate for this. So if you can say more words about the science that you would do if you had this, so that they can understand take it forward. I think that's.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that phrasing. From the standpoint of the dark energy science collaboration, almost all of our analyses are limited by systematics effects. Okay. And LSST DR1 is such a substantial increase in statistics that there may be features that are difficult for us to identify with data preview 2 alone. And this relates to, for example, everything from weak lensing shear measurements, precision photometry, and light curves. There's all kinds of different effects. And so, based on the experience of, prior dark energy experiments, based on the experience with data preview 1 and data preview 2, there's always this kind of lead time of where there's the cutting edge algorithmic development, and then how that gets implemented in the science pipelines, and then ultimately how that translates into particular data products. And so I think in the past, there's been this very fruitful collaboration between members of the science community and data management in terms of making some of those early analyses possible. And I think that actually significantly contributed to the data quality that we're seeing in data preview 1 and data preview 2. However, the in-kind contribution programs that existed during commissioning, right, these are winding down. And so if there were some mechanism to think about, for members of the science community to sort of participate in this feedback process, to participate in the scientific validation of algorithms as they're being implemented in the science pipelines, this would be extraordinarily valuable, looking ahead to LSST DR1. A response to Keith?
Just to add to what Keith said, I think it would also be very important for low surface brightness science to know what we are getting ready for in terms of, even if the data processing itself cannot be tweaked, we would like to know what kind of artifacts we should look ahead to, and sort of affects the whole community's readiness for DR1.
Do you want to say something on, I have a different point to bring up.
I'm counting. My watch is counting.
I just want to say that I recognize that every time that there's an ask from the science community, like that comes with a cost to data management. So I realize that this isn't free, and so I want to make it clear that, like, when phrasing this, this question or this request, right? I really don't want to try to ask data management to do more or to do extra, but only to think about, is there some kind of efficient mechanism to basically utilize the things that you're already doing around the pilot processing campaigns, and just find some way of engaging at least some members of the science community in that process.
I just want to add, you definitely don't need to censor yourself. You can just say what it is that would be useful, and just say what you need and what you would do with it. And this is the time for the UC can then interrogate you a bit and figure out more about what it is that you need, so that they can write their report. So it's all good. Yeah.
Okay, so this is semi-related to that, and semi not, but and I really, so this is Tesla Geltema. I'm currently the science collaboration coordinator, so I have my own avenues to talk to people, but I want to just like be a user right here. So this is my hat. In representing both current and potential users, clarifying, so we had this in-kind process, there's in-kind contributions, there's now the resource needs, is now going to be the new way of potentially new people getting in to data rights or participating. This is also related to what Keith said, in the sense that we have had these in-kind commissioning teams that are going to lose their access to the non-released data. But which, if there's resource needs, could potentially come back in through that process to then contribute to things. So my feedback is that, I guess it's now the resource in kind or resource needs, all of the process for like how people can get involved because there's so much. I just came from the European Astronomical Society meeting. There's a lot of interest in people being able to get involved. So clarifying and streamlining the process would be extremely beneficial. We had the, how people join in-kinds is already, I mean, there's all the existing in-kinds, but then if new people, like somebody moves and they want to get involved, or now it's going to be the resource needs, like declaring a new one and getting that through the process takes A, a really long time, and B, exactly what is needed to be submitted to get that all the way through is sometimes not clear. And so, I mean, I think it's been, I mean, there are very real reasons for like the data rights restrictions and stuff, but like the international community would very much love to get involved. And so making that, making it very clear and making that efficient in some way, like how that's going to work going forward, and making sure that the process moves smoothly would be really helpful.
Tom's waving online.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of build on that because, full disclosure, the work that I gave a talk on, was it yesterday, was as part of one of these teams. In the UK, we have some members who are in-kind contributors to what was Sitcom. Has it been renamed yet, by the way? Has anybody got a name for what's now the team that was Sitcom? I don't actually know. And as has been said, the teams are ramping down, and this being replaced by this needs process. But the issue there is that the need has to be identified by Rubin first, and they have to essentially put out this call, which is then answered. So then you have this bias of it becomes a question of, do you know someone in Rubin, or do you know, you sort of work backwards almost in some of these cases. So there's an issue there of teams that can do good work maybe not knowing someone to make that connection.
I will say, Tom, that science collaborations, I think, can also define needs through science collaborations can also define needs through the resource call. What I've heard is that's not always like a efficient or clear process.
Mm-hmm. I think that's I'm trying to build on that. Yeah, it's this if the more the system is difficult to use, the more beneficial it is to know someone who can help from the other end. So that's all I wanted to say was, it can risk being that there's a team that can do good works who doesn't know the right person to get the ear of the right person.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Tesla. This is Bob. I'll just say, absolutely acknowledge the input and the ideas and the concerns about the current process. I think we are committed to making it work and making it more efficient. I know it's taken a long time. Part of that is just everything else that's been going on in this period, and we get more opportunity to think about these things as we get closer to some kind of steady state. So I'm hopeful that that will work better. If there are specific resource needs that have been posted and you feel like anyone feels like they're not getting the attention they need or the response in time, please let me know and I'll work with the in-kind team to do what I can. I did want to say to Tom's first comment, I mean, the original in-kind program, let's just back up a second and talk about the in-kind program. The International In-Kind Program, which is now almost fully implemented, the first part of it was started as an operations era program, and it was designed to specifically give data rights to contributing institutions and programs for the operations phase. It wasn't necessarily to get people data rights to look at data before they were released or anything like that. That was the goal of Keith's program that he led. And it did include some of those same people, obviously. Some of the in-kind contributions that I just mentioned had to do with the commissioning phase, right? But most of them are for the operations phase. Keith set up a program to bring in people to help us commission and verify the system. And so that was a project defined need. It was large and he brought in a lot of people. So I don't think there's a fundamental difference there. Rubin going forward needs to be clear on what they need as priorities and what they can support when they bring in extra resources, because there's always there's always more work to efficiently design a program that can efficiently use the help that's contributed, right? So I don't think the channels are different, but the idea is the same. And what Tesla and Michael said is absolutely true. The science collaborations themselves are recipients of in-kind contributions, and they can also post resource needs, and we will, look at those, validate them, and put forward the ones that we think are valuable for us to have, talking with the science collaborations. So I guess to summarize, yes, we know that it's a change. But some of the general principles behind it are the same, and we acknowledge that we need to get things more efficient. And what Keith just mentioned, to tie it all off, is different than anything I was just talking about, right? That is somehow trying to find an avenue for scientists wherever they are in the collaboration. That would have to be people with data rights, obviously, to have early looks at data for the express purpose of helping us make those data as good as they can be when the data release comes out.
Okay, that's actually useful, Bob. Thanks. Because I think I was thinking in unknown unknowns. Rubin can't identify a need that it doesn't know it needs in whatever niche that whatever team might be researching. But if the science collaborations can themselves raise issues, then I think there's more channels, more eyes on these problems. So that's good. Thanks.
I was just going to say, I completely understand that there's been so much going on, like that. This is just flagging for the future, like one place where perhaps more resources would be helpful.
I mean, if there's no critical question here, then I can just maybe read out what Meg wrote as an acknowledgement. So what she's saying that she would like to acknowledge or bring attention to some of the really great things that the CST and others in front-facing Rubin roles are doing to support those in the community to get on board with Rubin tools and data products. For example, the Rubin assemblies and drop-in sessions hosted and led or organized by the CST, the responsiveness to getting questions, queries, requests replied to, directed to the right person on the community forum. Flowers, especially, I don't know what is flowers, flowers, especially to the members of the CST who monitor and respond to most of these posts. The new LSSTDA Slack feed posting summaries from Rubin Scheduler night reports that helps understand the alert stream. Thanks to the Rubin Scheduler team for making this happen. The addition of timestamps on documentation pages to check if a documentation page has been updated since you last looked. Sarah Greenstreet and Christina Williams gave excellent tutorials remotely to the SSAC's sprint in February. So I wanted to acknowledge this, especially with the time difference to Belfast, how much it was appreciated. It was really helpful and spurred projects during the sprint using the DP1 data and cutout tools.
Anyone wants to respond to that? For those online, there was a pretty loud clapping in the room, which I think reflects the appreciation for such a message.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank Meg. So, and also, if there are no other points to add, I would like to go back to the point that Nandini raised. Can people online hear me? Okay, we'll speak louder. So I think one of the recurrent requests that we got is help for documentation and onboarding for junior folks. So if you have any more specific ideas of what you would like to have in the documentation, it will be great for us to prepare the report and also understand what we really should ask for a change. So do you think that you would like a page with the most common links and the basic information summarized, or something else? I mean, what do you, in your opinion, what do you think is the problem that is really making it difficult for junior people to understand where the resources are and how to get started. And also, I mean, I'm looking at Nandini because she gets the point, but it's really an open question to everyone.
This is Nandini again. If nobody else has a point, I could just say some thoughts, just not organized, just some thoughts. Right. So I think having what you suggested, having a page with links would be resource intensive or time intensive to set up, but subject to change, which means recurring effort, which is perhaps not ideal. What I see newer people struggling with is finding the right relevant documentation. So for example, last week, our students had to set up aperture fluxes, so something very technical. So they had to set up aperture fluxes, but instead of getting the 0 points from the latest documentation, which is querying it from the metadata, which is the most recent thing that I do by looking at the community forum, they went and looked at a page from 6 years ago and plugged in some 0 points from there. So this kind of thing where the information exists at all stages, but they don't know which is the one relevant to them. So something that is searchable, which is why I said a lightweight LLM, which is internal to this algorithm that makes everything searchable. But as Mario said, existing LLMs are doing this very well too. I'm just scared and I am afraid of killing the planet. I just, yes, something internal would, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's less water intensive.
Daryl.
Okay, maybe this is kind of more of a question to Igor and Melissa for clarification. But before we go down a long rabbit hole about specific things that what documentation wise we want to change, should we, I mean, yeah, based on what you said in the beginning, Igor, should we avoid kind of saying very specific things and giving the exact actions we would want to see happen? Should we instead kind of phrase things as this is so and so is difficult, but not provide the answer?
Yeah, I think we can also, in the meeting you will have in a couple of months, you can probably distill from everything that was said today exactly what, in your opinion, should be reported and in which form. I guess just saying, generally speaking, an easier search tool would be helpful is probably general enough instead of giving the exact version of which tool you want. Right. So a bit of a balance that we probably want to strike to make it to definitely give enough the room to the project to do whatever they think is appropriate while representing faithfully what the users say. What are your thoughts, Daryl?
Well, I was thinking, I mean, I really like Vincenzo's point. We should definitely bring up things that people are struggling with, but maybe while I would just suggest that the most productive way potentially to talk about it is if we phrase things in such a way where we don't give exactly what we want to happen, we just say the issue, maybe for this discussion, if people can just think about that.
Yep, for sure. Thank you. So technically, the time for listening session is over. However, we also started a few minutes late, and I think unless there is any strong opposition from the other UC members, I would leave the floor open for a few more minutes in case anyone want to bring up any topics for discussion. See Mario with his hand raised.
So, sorry to make you run again. So as we're starting to put more data out, and as a lot of us who are in the project are moving more on the user side of things, I kind of have a maybe unique view of both what things look like on the inside and what things look like on the outside, and I'm kind of transitioning more and more to the outside. So with that perspective, I'm thinking, what am I going to, as a user next year, want to do with Rubin, and what are things that Rubin could do or not do to make my my life easier. One of the challenges I think we have in the project is that we've always wanted to deliver not just data, but excellent services to make it incredibly easy to use those data. I think as we've started building more and more, and our budgets are being reduced in various ways, and all the challenges that we're all living under, it's becoming more and more difficult to do everything we always wanted to do. And so I'm thinking, what can we do to still serve the community even in that kind of environment? And as a user, I think that I would be okay with getting data, even if it's not perfect, or even if it's not served with perfect services that we expected, than to necessarily have to wait longer and longer. So my kind of comment for the user committee, I don't know how others feel about this, is as the project is thinking how to go through the next couple of years, if there are trade-offs to be made on, hey, can we throw out this data product for the community that may not be ideal or perfect, or not quite with the services we wanted, or do we wait until we build up the services to kind of bias more towards, let's throw the data product out, because the community will come together and they will help us in some ways to build things around it, and unleash more science. So that's kind of my comment, that if there's a way to nudge us to not be worried about putting out things that are maybe not what we written 5 years ago in terms of what kind of services have to be wrapped around them, I, as a future user a year from now, would appreciate that. Yeah.
Can you give an example of the kind of tensions you see as it were?
So maybe an example. So I'm going to give you an example that's close to me, but I'm sure there are others. We've had alert streams and prompt operating for a number of months now, and internally have catalogs that of everything that's been recorded in prompt and so on, that we still cannot serve because our databases are not ready. But to be honest, if we as a community would know how to deal with a couple of gigabytes of files as well. So if those kinds of trade-offs happen over the next year or two, sometimes you enable more science, but just throwing things out, even if it doesn't have a great service on top, and you enable collaborations and others to build some intermediate solutions. And I think we're always concerned about that, because it's not clear how the community is going to accept that. But I'm starting to think it's better just to get data out, as much data as we can.
If I may add a comment, I personally agree with that. And also, as a community, we've always pushed for transparency. I think there has been a multiple context, this big push, but that comes with some pitfalls. Transparency means also seeing a bit more of the dirty laundry, in this case, maybe with some imperfect or incomplete products that maybe make their way because times are not quite ripe. But at the same time, I think the community is benefiting a lot from having more data out sooner. It's my very personal view, not as a user committee member. Daryl.
Mario, I appreciate what you're saying. I'm wondering though, is that something you want, ideally want to see as some type of finding? Like it's not crystal clear in my mind how we send that to the project.
I have to say, I don't know how the user committee works. I'm just, we were asked to give comments, and I'm just kind of commenting as a user who happens to know what we have still on the inside that we haven't published. What is it that I would like to see, so that a year from now, when I'm not on the inside, I get access to all of it soon.
I mean, I could see some sentiment of what you're saying as a finding. Like, it would be, even if the data products that get released are not exactly what was promised or perfect, let's maybe something along the lines of more data that the community can interface with sooner the better. I think we could make something like that, although I'm not sure. We'll probably talk about that more in a few minutes.
All right, so I suggest switching now to the more like UC proper discussion. Everyone is very welcome to stay, to listen in, to comment if, again, it's very relevant to stir the conversation. What I would ask to the user committee members is something slightly awkward, which is talk to each other, like between ourselves, that we're kind of located in a closed space, but such that Mario down there can also hear you. And I would take a seat myself.
Actually, just as a technical thing, I certainly welcome people on that side of the room to come sit at some of the empty chairs over here. They
Yeah,
really,
that would be
we will try, but like,
So, is there any specific topics among those you heard about now, or that we're thinking of bringing up that you would like to start with?
like in addition to these or working through these?
Can be
or-
part of this, part of what's been brought up, or anything new altogether.
I have a new topic that I pulled out. It was part of some feedback that we received through our forum, but yeah, we can talk about it later. So maybe we can give priority to what we discussed right now.
Well, maybe I'll start. I put on the first thing here, and in some ways actually connects to what Mario was just mentioning, if I may, Mario. We talked about this at the last users committee meeting. And I think I remember it, although I was in an airport and a little distracted. But it was kind of about all the great science that's been coming out of the solar system stuff, not precisely through the described processes and catalog definitions and schema, making it so that there's not an obvious way to serve it through things, but maybe you could just dump some gigabytes of files from some of that. And anyway, I think we talked about this the last thing. I don't have a new thing to add. But I think it remains a challenge and a concern for the solar system processing. Matt,
I mean,
please.
is the concern knowledge of the process, information about the process? Can you remind me what the real concern there was?
That all the descriptions of how things were going to be done was to go through alert processing to provide those things, and that's well documented, and people can look that up. What's actually happened, which has enabled great science, been totally good, and I'm happy that it's happened, but has been a much more, here are the data, we're kind of picking stuff out, sometimes from individual catalogs, sometimes with the own processing, we're putting some things together, we're running the association, we're sending to MPC, we're finding all these great things. But it's a little hard to then like write the paper and say, oh, just look at this data release or look at these alerts. You have to sort of describe that custom processing. And it's hard for someone else to sort of say, oh, this is what went in and these are the selection effects that I understand. And like, so what's the convergence plan in the next few months to get to something? Is it, hey, we just did this somewhat custom processing. This is what we did. Here it is. Here's the whatever files that go with this. And then separately, we're going to try to make sure things work, or is there some more complicated convergence?
It's more or less like that, but I mean, I'll let Mario comment as well, but there's a plan to have, at this point, 4 or 5 papers that describe the an overview of, the solar system in this, up through DP2 and how we did the different, how we processed the data up to this point. So that's the goal, and I think we've set it to be like the end of September to have those papers available.
Are you anything you want to say? Okay. Maybe there is also something in the response that the project gave to our previous findings that could be relevant.
Any feedback on that?
I think as long as that stuff comes out early, that's great.
Yeah.
The longer that waits, the more people are like, wait, people have some inside information and could do science that we couldn't do.
Yeah, the flip side of that is people who have the data now have objects they can study with those data. That was part of the goal, is like, let's make sure we have some solar system objects that can be, there can be alerts, there can be, your people. And so it's actually a process of, even before some of these data releases, of liberating some of the data by putting it into the Minor Planet Center so that people could see it. But I get the point that we should document earlier rather than later.
I apologize. I know this is your discussion time, but it's Peter asked.
I put you on the spot, Mario.
It's point is well taken. We're planning to put out 4 papers describing all the details of how things were done, but just maybe to try to dispel that concern about internal people doing science. The way we've published asteroid data is how asteroid data are published in the asteroid community. So I think this will not come as a surprise. If you look at how Pan-STARRS is doing it, or Catalina are doing it, or Atlas is doing it, in real time, they report everything they find into the Minor Planet Center. Some of those surveys, I don't think even have papers fully written on how they do it, but we've essentially followed established processes in that community to make sure that our data get out specifically so that people can do science. So I think, I would kind of, I don't want there to be a misconception that we're doing something to enable us internally to do science. Like, if we did that, then we would do the original plan. What we've done is the exact opposite of that. We try to get the data out as soon as we could, just for that reason.
Making the point that you could understand the perception could go wrong. Yeah.
In response to that? Okay.
Sorry, did you?
I was kind of surprised that the word provenance for solar system science was there, because in surveys, unless the person who is analyzing the data as it comes in says, oh, that's a comment, right? Then everything is just denoted to the actual survey and not to people.
Oh, I mean a provenance in the way Gregory would think about provenance.
Yeah,
Like,
to be
Okay.
able to reconstruct the chain
Oh,
of
okay.
processing that led to the data.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not talking about credit.
Vincenzo, would you like to raise the point you received as feedback from the forum?
Yeah, very briefly, it's the second point, as you can see here in the slide. So it's something that was already present in DP1 and is also present in DP2. So the source table has currently no object ID among the columns. And I'm not sure this is something that will be confirmed also for DR1, or it is only a data preview decision. And the point is that for some science cases, like for instance, this point was raised by people working in the variability subgroup of the AGN science collaboration. You would like to have the aperture photometry for a quite big list of sources. And so the easy thing to do is that you get the object ID and then you go to the source table to get the aperture photometry that is already there. But as there is no object ID, the only thing that you can do is do a coordinate matching, and it can be not exactly ideal. And so the point is that there were two sort of questions. Is this kind of thing going to be fixed for DR1? And so it is only a temporary thing for the data preview? Or are there other ways of thinking to solve this kind of problem? Like, for instance, adding a few apertures in the force source table, which is that as the object ID, but only as the PSF photometry, so no fixed
Thank
aperture.
you. That was my question. Because my answer was going to be that is by design.
Yeah, but it's only
But I can see
PSF
how,
photometry.
but there's not the aperture.
Yeah, so the point is having aperture photometry will not be much accessible in one way or the other.
Do you think this is more appropriate and useful as a finding of the users committee, or should you direct the people who submitted this comment to community first and maybe seek a more direct answer to that?
So I think there was a post on the community forum about it. So the finding is still open. So I mean, on one side there is something quick to solve for data preview too, but I don't know. I think what these people want to know do they need to find an ad hoc solution also for DR1, or it is something to be solved? Because I think that in the original data products definition document, it was mentioned that the object ID column was common in all the tables, but it's not in the source table.
But by construction, it's not in the source table.
No, Michael, he's correct. It
He's
was
correct?
in the
Oh, great.
DPD.
I'm glad to be wrong.
To do it. It was in the DPD. I'm not in a position to answer. I'm not on the pipeline side of the project. I'm not in a position to answer, if and when that's going to actually be delivered.
So I don't understand how it gets backfilled.
It was meant to be, well, the data release is isn't produced as an online algorithm. It's produced all at once. So yes, one could do N-way association on the source table. That was the implication.
I'm so happy to be wrong. Thank you.
But I don't know what the current plan is. So it's perfectly reasonable for the user committee to ask this question. I did hear you say that, you would need either aperture photometry in the source table or access to the single epoch images. And of course, you will have access to the single epoch images in DP2 when its delivery is complete and in DR1. So that part is for sure.
Yeah. Any more comments on this topic? If not, small point, more like a start of a conversation that I wanted to bring up, not quite a feedback and finding in itself, but I think we're all excited that EDP2 data were released a few days ago. For us, probably it's been harder to go and play with the data, but was lucky enough to have excited students and postdocs I could Slack and say, go find transients. And they did, they tried. And what I tried directing them towards is use everything you have produced for DP1 and just apply to DP2, since you spent so much work doing it. And the answer I got was a bit surprising to me, which is we can't, because despite a few small changes that are pretty trivial, it's not scalable. Like the size is so different that just the queries that were okay with DP1 now would take weeks. And I don't know how to respond to that. Like first of all, because I didn't see the data myself, but is this a problem that others have encountered? Is this something that is easy to circumvent, or is it a real problem that we should report? Like it's almost impossible to query the EDP2 for transients because of the way the database is and the queries are organized.
I think that sounds like a great finding. There are tools that worked, tools and queries that work for DP1 and don't work for DP2.
So I'm not just. Oh, the ceiling is not getting me. I'm not just transients. All my queries are breaking. I assumed it's because it's oversubscribed and everybody is excited and everyone is on the RSP right now. So I will go back home, test it, and come back. But
people want to know right now if you have things that aren't working.
it is breaking.
Very much encourage you to make a community post. Yeah, please.
Yeah.
That's on. Yes.
Or if you just want to send it to Igor or anyone like
absolutely.
No,
Don't send it directly to a staff member.
Make a community post. Please don't directly message staff members. Igor. Oh, sorry. Sorry, yes.
I'm in public, I'm doing something stupid, you could send it to one of us. That's all.
Oh, yeah, sure, to the UC, of course, yes. Yeah, sorry. That I thought you were referring to a project staff member who would have been a reasonable person to be interested in your question. So that's why it was not a crazy presumption. So we are deploying changes literally today to deal with issues that have already been observed in the first few days of the release. And we're going to continue to do that. So there's, you should by no means assume that, strange behaviors of queries in the first couple of days have any implications for, what the long-term behavior of the system is going to be. We're finding problems, we're fixing them. That's how it works. You show up at the door, you submit 3,000 queries that we didn't think of in our testing, and something happens, and then we fix them.
Maybe I would like to just extend upon the point that Satadru had raised early in the session today regarding downloading all cutouts around transients or around alerts to be able to. So his question comes from the side of being able to do direct searches for strongly lensed transients. And so his requirement is to have cutouts which are larger than the cutouts that are available from the brokers, right? So 60 by 60 pixels sort of. But to be able to do that on essentially all alerts, or by adding some filter on it, right? So then it's a slightly downscale sample, and then to do this basically every single day, which seems like a humongous task and something very prohibitive, and something that would not be recommended to be done on a regular basis. But I just heard that at least in the near future, it's going to be feasible to be able to bulk download the cutouts on a large scale, essentially for this kind of task. But what I want to know is that, is this something that is recommended? Is this, or is there a better way of doing things? Or are there some other resources where we could make use of the cutouts and not having to do this ourselves within the strong lensing science collaboration?
I'm not going to answer the question. I'm just going to ask for clarification. When you say the cutouts, there are no pre-computed cutouts. So
Yeah.
So what exactly are you envisioning? Submitting a query with a long list of sources and then getting, custom cutouts made at the time you submit the query?
Yes, that is what Satadru would want to do. But what I'm asking is there a better way or better resource that exists somewhere that we are probably not aware of, where we won't have to do this on the fly every single time?
What do you mean by on the fly versus bulk? I guess is my question.
There is the embargo as well. 80
Yeah,
hours.
given all of that, I think what I'm asking is that the brokers provide cutouts which are 30 by 30 pixels, if I'm right. His requirement is slightly larger than
I understand.
that. So then the obvious step would be that he actually does this by himself, generate these cutouts for whatever sample of alerts he's interested in. And I'm asking, is there some other resource where there are larger cutouts which will be available, or something that would be common to more people, like it would serve the needs of more people, where slightly larger cutouts are going to be available somehow, somewhere, at some point? For this kind of science?
I think my understanding is the image cutout server is designed to do this.
Yeah, but this is going to be single visit images, right? I'm just confused by your confusion.
Again, I'm not going to try to answer because I can't speak for my. I'm not going to try to answer because I can't speak for my colleagues without talking to them first, right? But there's a very interesting conversation happening there about, first of all, are the cutouts that come in the alerts, are they the right size to meet the needs of the community? That's a very legitimate question for the user committee to ask. I'm not suggesting that we have very much flexibility to change them because the data volume is quadratic in the, in the area, in the length of the sides. But that's like a legitimate question to ask. If there's a science case that says 30 is just like not enough for anybody or something, that's something one would need to hear about. But for like setting up a regular production where if you're going to say, look, I have to make 60 by 60 cutouts every day for the next 10 years in order to do my science, that's a use case we clearly want to hear about and try to think about what is the best way to satisfy that. Yes, there will be higher capacity cutout services than the current one, that we are working on that. That's in requirements. We've stated that in previous presentations, so I'm not going out ahead of anybody by saying that. But the specific use case that you've described might push us to, well, okay, there's a caching for a week for cutouts made overnight or something like that. So like the user committee can do us a real service by really collecting use cases and presenting them to us in a sort of prioritized and vetted way.
Yeah, I was also thinking maybe this could be a case for some of maybe the IDACs or some servers where you can have spinning on file, maybe some of the larger cutouts for a certain time for everyone to access. Maybe this is something to think about aggregating from various collaborations in the future.
I mean, it's a challenging problem from an IDAC perspective. To do on-the-fly cutouts, that's hard. It's not impossible. Whether we can provide the same level of performance as the RSP is TBD. I actually have to run off to a telecom, but I want to comment on the last two bullet points. One is the Roman and Euclid thing. The IDACs, several of the IDACs will have a copy of Euclid, so that includes Canada. The ones I know of for sure are Canada and Denmark and Spain will have a copy of Euclid. And then finally, for the RAC process in the USDF, we discussed this during the IDAC meeting. People who apply for a RAC allocation and don't get it, they could also be funneled off to the IDACs. After that, I'm just going to do a mic drop and run off to my telecom.
Thanks. May I put Alejandro on the spot from the broker side and his experience as a user about this matter of the cutout sizes?
Yes, actually, I wanted to comment that is not restricted to the strong lensing science. We also have like comments that, hey, do you know when will the daily image be available? Because there is a lot of interest. I don't have like numbers, let's say how many of these cutouts and what the specific size, but I think that is more or less clear that the 30 pixel size of the cutouts is still limiting many things.
So I wonder if we can present as a finding, maybe not, like to the project as a whole, all the way to the leadership, if it could still conform the contracts you have with whoever imposes the embargo to still have somewhere larger cutouts that people can access without waiting the 80-hour period. I'm looking at Bob, although this should be a conversation between us. But so essentially, so even if you don't distribute, okay, let's assume you cannot increase the data volume such that the cutouts that come with the alerts are bigger. I think everyone would have to change their system in that case. But let's assume you can make a larger cutout that lives on a server that can still be accessed. And that can be done in near real time without waiting for 80 hours. Is that something that can be asked at least?
So we have talked about this actually with respect to that. So you're mixing two things here though, right? There's the technical issues of increasing the alert volume by various choices you make on what you produce. And then there's what can be offered in the alert stream on the instantaneous time scale. So those are they're related, but they're two different things. And as Gregory said, the technical ones would have to have serious consideration what they actually mean. But from a policy standpoint, we probably could support specific requests for larger cutouts. to be made available in the alert stream, especially if they came with pre-vetted, kind of target characteristics. Like, here are the lensed galaxies that we want to continually observe. Here's a list of them. And these we would recognize and have more cut out to do the science that needs to be done in that way. But then when you couple it to the volume and the number, and you want to do every alert, then that's a different question.
I understand that what you're suggesting is that it may be feasible to do something like that for a narrower subset, which is preferentially, let's say, centered around some known lens systems.
Yes, from a
versus-
policy point of view, we can consider that question, but then it would have to go to a technical discussion about what it actually meant.
Okay. The requirement here is actually slightly different, and in fact, the motivation to do this activity or this kind of project is actually because we want to look at those coordinates where we actually don't know that they are lenses. It's actually to find the lenses which we don't know beforehand, and so it's not. Yeah, what you suggested will not really be a solution for us because we would want to work with a larger sample where we don't know whether the lenses are there, but it could be a sample smaller than the entire alerts that are being sent out. So we are happy to put some sort of filter, some sort of selection, and then it would be a smaller subset, but it would be the locations where we don't know that they are lenses. We have to find the lenses there.
This actually connects to a big problem we have in the multi-messenger, broadly speaking, multi-messenger community, which is we're looking for transients that fade away really rapidly.
Yeah.
So maybe you have 1 or 2 alerts, and then you keep taking images, but maybe the signal is not significant enough for a detection, so for an alert to be produced. So something that would be fantastic is to be able to have a cutout of the region that was newly imaged in near real time without waiting for 80 hours and do force photometry or maybe custom stacking. You can go deeper if you have the images. And this is a hurdle we have encountered in so many conversations, and it looks like this could be of broader, different reasons, but of broader interest. So I would strongly suggest we bring this up in the next report and see where we go from there, especially since it sounds like there could be a little bit of flexibility in the policies for that aspect.
Sure. I mean, your use case obviously would require some technical consideration, but it doesn't immediately scare me because we don't have that many of these cases, right? As far as a big volume or something.
Right, but like 1 minute by 1 more minute, arc minute, 1 by 1 arc minutes where cutouts aren't just a problem in volume, they're a problem for policy because they are most of the focal plane. At some point, you have distributed most of the focal plane through the stamps.
There are a lot of alerts on every.
Oh, okay. So the combination of them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
For a moment,
But that's why Bob's a little happier. If you have a specific selection effect, then you don't run into that problem.
Yep.
For the policy.
Fair enough.
That specific loophole in the policy has been noted.
We still have a couple of minutes.
I wanted to second related to the topic of tutorials and also like the questions that always appear as can I do this, that are question very specific, and maybe a good way is this having the documentation and then a LLM that will help you find that specific you want, and even I think in tutorials maybe targeted for the specific audiences, let's say students, undergrads, researchers, etc. But I wanted to follow on the comment that Dini said about having this locally. I interpret that as the users also care about the consequences of using these tools. And I know that it's not restricted to LLMs. Processing data is also expensive for the environment, but I think that having that transparency, especially in the case of these new tools, will be useful for the users to wanting to use it. Because if they are not informed of how expensive these tools are, they won't use it. So I think that is like the human side of interacting with this tool. I think is useful to address it when developing these ways to access the data, because we always go back to the same. It's like we have a lot of documentation, but sometimes it's not so findable, and also the audience is not tuned to it.
I just want to add, because I don't think I said this, that what I said was in addition to, so we use the tutorials by the community science team extensively. It's our first frontier. They have been remarkable. Thank you for everything that you do and continue doing. Thank you. And please also let us know as a community if we can add to that. But I think what I said is on top of the tutorial. So it's additional things that we cannot have from the tutorial. So I think as a community, we are also trying to now contribute and do more community focused things and try to build this sort of expertise together and add to what the tutorials already do. But what you said.
Any more comments or pressing issues before we close? If not, I would like to conclude with 3 thank yous. One to everyone in the room, everyone online who contributed with ideas and throughout, these years, providing very good feedback. Second, thank you to the project for listening. Every time we receive very thorough responses to our finding, we're very grateful for that. And finally, I ask you to please join me in thanking the members of the committee for all their work.
So for helping out with everything. When did you get all that?
Definitely
Between
not.
the two of you.
You have some overlap.
So what do you want to run?
I can.
Hi.
I feel
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
happy by you needed, I kind of.
So what,
You can have any.
No,
Yes.
what do you want to know?
What do I want
What
to
can I
run?
fail?
So I'm trying to know objects, well, these 12 objects, which are right, so I was running them through the portal. And that it kept running for hours and hours and just wouldn't complete. I thought it was because everybody else was harder.
We're going to have one of the.
Through the portal,
Sure,
and
but
it's overburdened.
That's in the portal.
I don't know.
It's true. So I want to, I don't want to be like, oh, I ran this thing and it didn't run. So I want to find out some things
You
and put
deserve
on
the
community.
space and you deserve the resources that people fixing this. If you want to put that community
But you know,
great,
I want to participate. Yes.
the people involved actually want you to succeed.
General
Thank
case.
you. Thank you.